Welcome to Friday's edition of COVID-19. We're ending the work week on a rather grave note, with the daily tally above 800 today, the highest in about 6 months. Now, we start with this tally before delving into the post-infection conditions suffered by some former patients of COVID-19 later on in the program. Right then, Soa, let's start with the updates here on the local front.
Sure, Sunny. As you said, the highest daily figure in almost 6 months, and that's since January 7th to be exact. 826 cases were reported as of 12 a.m. this Friday. And with that, the number of domestic transmissions has been in the 700s for the third straight day. But here, another concern, 61 imported cases. That's the highest figure in 11 months and also the second highest figure of imported cases since the outbreak here in Korea. And with that, the country has now 158,549 infections. Now, this Friday, we are seeing 347 cases in the capital, Seoul, followed by 264 in Gyeonggi-do province. So really, the figures are now concentrated in the metropolitan region.
Right now, so tell us a bit more about the outbreak in the metropolitan region and what we can expect to happen with social distancing guidelines.
Well, Sunny, around 80% of cases recently have been confirmed in the capital region. And this is also why the launch of the revised social distancing system has been delayed for a week. But with cases only growing, now the health ministry is in discussion with officials in the greater Seoul area of what to do next. So they are going to monitor the situation, as experts are even warning daily cases could reach up to over 1,000. Now, the fast spread is being attributed to a number of small and bigger sized cluster infections, especially one linked to foreign English teachers in Gyeonggi-do province that got together in a bustling area in Seoul's Mapo district. And that has led to a number of chain transmissions and now accounts for a total of 242 cases. So far, 9 of the highly transmissible Delta variants were also detected among these, and more could be confirmed in the coming days as contact tracing is still underway. Now, with over 500 daily infections on average in the past week, the metropolitan region already meets the criteria for level 3 social distancing under the revised system. And across the nation in the past week, the daily average, if we take a look here, has been hovering between the 500s and now even the 800s. And if we break it down into domestic and imported cases, we are seeing surging cases not only here in the domestic cases, but here imported cases, as they have been even in the low 20s and now are in the 60s. And we're also expecting a high figure of imported cases tomorrow because we are having 20 South Korean residents from Indonesia that are said to be arriving here in Korea this Friday, with 18 of these having mild symptoms of the coronavirus and 2 of them having serious symptoms. And the importance of vaccination is being stressed further because, especially also when it comes to the variants, vaccination is reducing severe illness. And now we've got, with 5.1 million people in the country having been fully vaccinated, that's 10% of the nation's population. Now, meanwhile, the Delta variant is also threatening Europe, that just started its vaccine passport program on Thursday, but the acceptance of the travel pass could be suspended over fears of the variants could exponentially surge during the summer vacation. Finally, let's take a look at the numbers abroad. Here, the UK has been seeing over 27,000 infections. That's the highest since late January. And all of these that you can see here are having more than 20,000 daily cases recently. And the figure around the world now stands at 183.4 million. Those are the updates I have for now. I'll see you back after the government briefing. Sunny?
All right, so thank you for now. Meanwhile, as of Thursday here in Korea, those who have received at least 1 dose of the COVID-19 vaccine can take their face masks off when outdoors. Now, for more on this, I have our Kim Sung-yeon here in the studio with me. Welcome, Sung-yeon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Right, so the mask mandate outdoors has been eased for those inoculated.
That's correct. So on Thursday, the government dropped its mask mandate in outdoor settings, that is, such as at hiking trails and parks, for those who've been vaccinated. So as long as they can stay 2 meters apart from one another. Now, this comes as part of the government's broader easing of restrictions, which have kicked into effect with the start of July. But with daily caseloads now on the rebound, many people are still choosing to wear their masks as a precaution, even if they have been vaccinated.
I still wear a mask because it feels that if I don't, People on the streets will give me a stare.
Health experts have also expressed concerns that an easing of the mask mandate may ignite a surge in new infections, as many people in their 20s to 50s have yet to be vaccinated. Not to mention the growing presence of the more transmissible Delta variant that is adding to these worries. Health Ministry spokesperson Son Young-rae, though, reassured the public that a lifting of the outdoor mask mandate did not pose a serious risk from a containment point of view.
I see. But, Song-yeon, regardless of that, the situation here in the Greater Seoul area does look quite grim, right?
Yes, the situation is not looking very bright, Sunny. In fact, as you mentioned in the opening and as mentioned earlier, Korea's daily caseload soared to a near 6-month high on Friday. The worsening situation here has prompted authorities to delay the planned easing of restrictions here in the Greater Seoul area by 1 week as well. The country did report 826 new COVID-19 cases on Friday, the highest tally since January 7th. In Thursday's afternoon government briefing, KDCA Commissioner Jung Eun-kyung warned that the easing of restrictions coupled with a sense of complacency could result in a fresh wave of new infections.
More people will gather once social distancing measures are eased, and when mixed with the consumption of alcohol and other risk factors at crowded venues, this could trigger an explosive resurgence in the outbreak.
The number of infections in the Greater Seoul area accounted for over 80% of the nationwide total in the past week, according to health authorities. They added that we could see an even greater number of daily cases, with more people venturing outdoors and the highly contagious Delta variant continuing to spread. In particular, the government is on edge over the upcoming summer holiday season and transmissions among young, socially active people who have yet to receive their vaccines.
Right, and speaking of vaccines, Song-yeon, do tell us a bit about our third quarter vaccination plan.
Right, this was covered quite extensively in Thursday's afternoon government briefing. Korea will start vaccinating high school seniors and faculty members from July 19th and people in their 50s from July 26th. Now, one notable change here is that the country will now administer AstraZeneca vaccines only to those aged 50 or older instead of the current 30-plus age group in light of concerns over rare blood clots. The KDCA said those under 50 who have already received the AstraZeneca vaccine for their first doses will be given the Pfizer vaccine for their second shots, and that will start July 5th. And if I go into some detail, as you can see in this graphic, from July 5th to the 17th, people who were eligible to be vaccinated in June but did not get their shots will receive the Pfizer vaccine. During the same time period, Pfizer shots will be handed out to seniors aged 60 and above and essential public workers under 30, such as police officers and firefighters. Moving on, more than 70,000 military draftees who are due for enlistment between July and September. They will be inoculated starting July 12th. High school seniors and faculty, through appointments booked by schools, will be vaccinated from July 19th to the 30th, while teachers at kindergartens, elementary and middle schools will get their jabs on July 28th. And now going over to the Moderna vaccines, those over 60 who had to postpone their shots due to health reasons will be given the Moderna vaccine from July 26th to the 31st. And starting July 12th, more than 3.5 million people aged between 55 and 59 can book their vaccines online and will be getting the shots from July 26th. Those aged 50 to 54 can make their reservations from July 19th to the 24th, and their inoculations will kick off on August 9th to run through August 21st. So that's the plan that we have for the third quarter, Sunny.
All right, Song-yeon, thank you very much for that detailed coverage.
Thank you for having me.
Right, it's time now for the regular afternoon briefing on the COVID-19 situation here in Korea for this Friday. Now, the planned ease in social restrictions for the Greater Seoul area has been delayed by a week until July 8th, given the rebound in daily infections in recent days. Accordingly, the metropolitan region faces the former level 2 guidelines for one more week until July 8th. So until then, only up to 4 people are permitted to meet for social purposes. Also, restaurants, cafes and gyms can only operate until 10 in the evening, while clubs are to remain closed. Now, initially starting this month, the plan was to allow these businesses to stay open until midnight. Movie theatres and concert halls are required to leave one seat empty between patrons of parties. Sporting venues face a capacity of 30%, while weddings can host up to 99 people. Places of worship can fill up to 20% of their capacity. Now, after a week's observation of the current situation here in the Greater Seoul area, authorities will decide on the fate of COVID-19 guidelines for the metropolitan region. Meanwhile, for regions under level 1, most face a cap of 8 people for social gatherings until the 14th of July. And from the 15th of July, they face no restrictions. And speaking of no restrictions, restaurants, cafes and nightlife entertainment facilities in regions under level 1 are free to choose their own closing hours. We are still waiting for the briefing to start, so let's take a broader look at the revised framework of social distancing guidelines. The new framework includes a 4-tier arrangement. Level 1 refers to scattered daily infections, meaning fewer than 500 daily cases across the nation that are within medical capacity. Accordingly, the response involves individual compliance with simple and basic efforts to curb transmission. Level 2 refers to cluster infections within the community, standing at over 500 daily infections, but fewer than 1,000 nationwide, and the response involves limits on the number of people at both indoor and outdoor venues. Level 3 refers to larger regional infections that would be more than 1,000 but fewer than 4,000 on a daily basis nationwide, and the response involves a ban on all gatherings for social purposes. Finally, Level 4 refers to a nationwide outbreak of over 4,000 daily cases, and the response involves the imposing of a stay-at-home order. Now, for the specifics with regard to gatherings, under Level 1, there are no limits on the number of people meeting for social purposes, while events with 500 or more people simply require prior registration with local authorities, and rallies can host up to 499 participants. Right, I hear the briefing is about to start. We'll come back to you afterwards.
First of all, we have Mr. Kwon Junuk with the briefing. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Kwon Junuk, and let us now begin our regular briefing for July 2nd, Friday. First of all, as for the increase in the latest outbreak, we are also seeing the increase of the cluster infections involving young people here in the metropolitan area. In particular, among the young population in the metropolitan area and the places that they frequently visit, including bars, we are seeing a rise in new infections. And these transmissions are now also spreading fast to non-metropolitan areas as well. So in the end, we can see that through these cluster infections, we have a very high risk of these local transmissions nationwide. And relatively, these young population, they have a low rate of vaccination compared to other age group. And to this end, against such a backdrop, at indoor spaces, when they are consuming food, they also have the opportunity to take off their masks, and therefore we are also witnessing continued cluster infections stemming from bars, restaurants, and cafes, and so forth. And as of now, we also want to give you a latest detail on the Seoul Mapogu District Hongdae area in relation to a cluster that has been stemming from a pub, and we see that 53 infections have broke out at this specific place. And at these places, people had also very close physical distance and also poor ventilation. And also people did not wear a face mask properly. And also some of the users, they also visited other bars and pubs that were in the vicinity. So we believe that there could be also wider spread of the virus. And as some partial population of them, they also were working at an English institute in Gyeonggi province, and we also see some transmissions there as well. So against this backdrop, during the weekend and also through the summer holidays, we believe and we are also seeing the threats of coming from an increased risks of such cluster infections at similar facilities going forward. And also in this weekend, we also ask you to refrain from going to these related pubs, bars, and also clubs. And also all of the managers and workers working there, you need to also keep good monitoring of the people, users' health conditions, like whether they have a fever or not, and also comply them to wear face mask properly as well. And to this end, the government is carrying out intensified quarantine measures by also cracking down these patients and conducting epidemiological investigation very closely. And also at clubs and other cluster places where that are frequented by people and which are also crowded with poor ventilation. If you have visited such a place, we ask you to get tested as well. And not only bars, but also when you are going to restaurants or cafes or any other multi-use areas that are indoor spaces, you need to also take particular precautions. And when you are not consuming food, when you are engaging in conversation, you also need to wear face mask at all times. Nextly, on the vaccination front, here are some details. Starting from the 8th of July, we will also have the beginning of the management and also control of the senior citizens, the vaccination aged over the age of 75. And this is the timing when we will be switching the control from the local governments to the individual family members. And until now, the local governments had a hands-on approach on looking at the list of eligible recipients. And however, this will also concede starting from 6th of July. However, starting from 8th of July, you could also designate these senior citizens as a high-risk group, and you could also utilize the booking of the vaccination appointments by the local health community centers. And also, as for those who have booked their vacation appointments but have not yet received their vaccines yet, as for the seniors above the age of 75, that is, you could also get your vaccines if you continue to book your appointment through the local community health centers. And after the 8th, you also can do so by individually. And next, on the treatment front, as for the treatment, we also have administered the drug to more than 1,010 people. And also, as for the regular treatment, we have administered the drug to over 5,000 people here in the country. And also blood plasma treatment, we also have approved 74 cases that are under treatment right now. And against this backdrop, we are also conducting animal testing of the Korea homegrown antibody treatment, and we are also seeing whether this has the efficacy against a Delta variant. And we are conducting the animal testing right now, and to this end, we will be looking at the fatality rates and also the trends of the further development of these virus, and we will also disclose any details that we have as soon as possible. And we are also closely cooperating with the private sector as well, and we are also seeing a wide-scale drug treatment, the antibody treatment. We are also providing and developing them right now, and those that have high effectiveness against the new variants. And until now, we also have cultivated about 530 COVID-19 genes so that we could also look at the effectiveness of these antibody treatment. And through such measures and tests, we will also contribute further to keeping the nation's health. And also, last but not least, lately the COVID-19 virus is also spreading very fast and is mutating also into the new variants as well. And it is also targeting the young population who have not yet received their vaccines yet. And we are also seeing a rebound in the latest cases. Of course, we believe that continued vaccination could break the chains of such local transmissions, and this will ultimately bring down the number of new patients on a daily basis. However, right now, it is a very crucial moment of time that we have to fight against this new spread of the virus, and we need to do so by complying stringently with the quarantine measures. We know that we have been highlighting this multiple times by now. However, you need to always wear a face mask and also keep social distancing measures, and also get tested if you have any symptoms of COVID-19. And globally, we are seeing a downsize of the COVID-19 related fatalities, and the same goes for that of South Korea. And we also have a very low critically ill patients as well. And however, we also see Seychelles or other countries like advanced countries that have high vaccination rate, which with over 70%, and the UK as well, we are also seeing a rebound in the cases. However, if you look at the close statistics, most of the new infections in the UK, they are unvaccinated young people, and the virus is spreading also very fast through the education institutions that are frequented by these young population. And looking at the population here in South Korea as well, we also are very concerned of the likely surge of the virus and also this targeted age group as well. And also to this end, we understand and we have also experienced in the past where these viruses could break out most easily. Firstly, it is the group actions involving demonstrations or rallies. And second, it is religious activities and such as churches. And third, as mentioned earlier, it is also the multi-use facilities, the indoor and live entertainment venues that are frequented by the young population. Please note that these facilities have higher risks of infection, and it is very important that for us to trace down the users and the patients. And if we sit idly by, we will also see a rapid surge of the virus. And also, these infections, through such cluster infections, these could also lead to another rebound in the number of fatalities and also critically ill patients. And if this does happen, this could also threaten the Korean government's and our medical capacity to respond to COVID-19. And to this end, it is very important that you get vaccinated complying by the schedule that has been devised by the government, and also to make sure that the COVID-19 does not develop and spread further. And until now, we need to also able to control the COVID-19 as one of the many infectious diseases that we have been fighting here in the country. And the quarantine authorities will also make sure to respond to the latest surge. Thank you very much.
Right, that was Kwon Junuk with Friday's afternoon briefing. So what did he have to say?
Well, Kwon started with the rise in the capital region that occurred due to cluster infections linked to younger people, and especially those who went to nightlife entertainment venues such as pubs and bars and clubs. So he said that these cases in the capital region have already spread to non-metropolitan regions, and that could lead to a nationwide spread in further days, especially with summer holidays coming up as well. So he was really stressing on people to, not lose their vigilance and abide by social distancing measures, especially because the younger people, that population is the people who haven't been vaccinated yet. And with that, he also mentioned that across the world, we are seeing a drop in fatalities linked to COVID-19, as well as here in Korea, but a rise in cases even in countries that have like 70% of their population vaccinated. So with that, he also mentioned that here in Korea, among fears over the variant cases that are even more transmissible, the country is undergoing antibody treatment against the Delta variant. Animal testing related to that is underway as well. So really the focus was young people abide by social distancing measures because we are seeing a surge in cases.
Right. All right, so thank you very much for that.
My pleasure.
Right. Also on the local front, in anticipation of greater traffic at airports amid plans to actively resume travel, officials at Incheon International Airport are working to strengthen their COVID-19 prevention measures. For more on this, our Chun Song-Cho is out there right now. Hello, Song-Cho.
Good afternoon, Sunny.
Right, so Song-Cho, which terminal are you at?
Well, I'm at Terminal 2, Incheon International Airport, which used to be one of the busiest places in the country before the pandemic. Well, the number of daily travelers here is usually around 100,000, but after COVID-19 took hold and tanked travel demand, the number dwindled to about 2,000 last May, and only recently it has crept up to about 10,000 thanks to the ongoing global vaccination campaign. Well, if you're wondering which part of the airport exactly I'm at, well, right outside this gate you'll see the COVID-19 testing center that has been established inside Terminal 2. So with the country's vaccine rollout picking up steam, people have been really looking forward to travel abroad in the foreseeable future. So it has become ever more important for the airport to be able to screen people as well as their baggage for COVID at the country's entry point before the virus ever makes its way into the country. So the airport has come up with various ways in order to ramp up their disease control measures. And one of them is to expand the number of COVID testing centers inside the facility. So they have decided to set up 2 additional ones in Terminal 1 in order to prepare for increased traffic. It has also adopted what's called the smart disinfection system for baggage, which basically disinfects baggage automatically as it passes through the conveyor. And it has decided to expand the system and set up a total of 33 units inside the facility. And there's also a robot that's going around the airport checking people's body temperature. So if a person seems to have a fever, then the robot will automatically notify the authorities and also give instructions to the person on what he or she has to do in the meantime. Now, why don't we invite an official from the airport to learn more about their safety procedures. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, so can you share with our viewers on what the airport is exactly doing in order to ramp up their disease control measures?
Well, since the COVID-19 pandemic last year, we have established a master plan immediately and have improved our infrastructure and system to make Incheon Airport one of the safest places in the world. And then after 1.5 years, as the vaccination rate increases, we are now ready to welcome and reassure our passengers of a safe journey at the airport. Outbound passengers will experience contactless services from check-in to board. Robots will be there to check if you have a fever, wear a mask, even clean and sanitize. Furthermore, COVID-19 test has been available on site for those who need a negative certificate to travel. All arriving passengers will be carefully managed through a special quarantine declaration process.
All right, thank you so much for your answer, and thank you so much for ensuring safety for all travelers.
Thank you very much.
All right, personally speaking, it feels a little bit weird to be here because it's my first time coming to the airport in a really long time. I know we've been waiting for this moment for too long now. The moment we get to jump on the plane, hit the skies, and travel outside of the country. But let's not forget that we have to keep the daily infection number in control in order to really fully enjoy traveling and also somewhat go back to how things used to be before the pandemic. This has been Jeon Sung-cho reporting live from Incheon International Airport, and back to Sunny in the studio.
All right, Sung-cho, as always, thank you for that coverage.
Ich habe schon lange Zeit Kopfschmerzen nach dem Covid und wenn ich arbeite, manchmal kann ich nicht gut fokussieren. Also ich esse schwierige Situation. Ich weiß nicht, was kann ich mir tun.
post-acute sequelae of SARS-CoV-2 infection. Also known as long COVID, refers to symptoms suffered by people after their initial battle with the virus. Now, knowledge of long COVID is evolving as we speak, and in this session, we delve into what has been disclosed so far and the current efforts to tackle it. I have Professor Sarah Okshin from Korea University. Good to see you again, Professor Shin.
Thank you for having me.
And joining the session virtually is Dr. Hector Bonilla at Stanford University. Pleasure to have you with us, Dr. Bonilla.
Oh, pleasure to me too. Thank you.
Right. Professor Shin, will start here. A 72-year-old British man tested positive for COVID-19 for 305 days, fighting and fortunately winning what is believed to be the longest battle against COVID-19 on record. First then, what, Professor Shin, is the average treatment period for COVID-19?
So as you know, majority of COVID-19 patients have mild or moderate symptoms, and this lasts for about 2 weeks. So typically people recover within 2 weeks, but some people may suffer from the COVID-19 infection for more than several months.
And these people are the ones who are suffering from the severe cases of the illness then?
Right.
I see. Professor Shin, what now is Korea's literature then on long COVID so far?
Yeah, so as far as I know, we had a patient who was hospitalized for more than 138 days, which was probably the longest period of treatment that we had in our record. But it is known that other countries like US or UK may have more longer hospitalization cases because they have more severe cases than we do. And also these people who are hospitalized for a long time are usually have diabetes or cardiovascular disease that might complicate medically the symptoms of COVID-19. So that might be, why, US or UK have more severe cases.
I see. And Dr. Bonilla, then, just for the sake of comparison, what has been the longest treatment period for COVID-19 in the US?
I think the treatment in here in the United States depends on the situation. Because patients, they are ambulatory with a high risk of complications, and they don't require oxygen. We use monoclonal antibodies. And the people who have admitted to the hospital and require oxygen, so we use the remdesivir between 5 to 10 days and the dexamethasone. So in total in the hospitals around 10 days treatment with the antivirals plus dexamethasone as an outpatient in people who are high risk, 1 dose of remdesivir.
I see. And Dr. Bonilla, I believe you run a clinic at Stanford dedicated to research and therapy of long COVID. Please tell us a bit about the clinic and the treatment options for the long COVID patients there.
I think the term long COVID is not well defined. I think most of the people define long COVID for people who 4 weeks after they recover for the initial events, they have some persistent symptoms. And the symptoms are, depends on the organ or systems involved. We see people with a post-COVID with a lung involvement, post-COVID with a heart involvement, post-COVID with autonomic dysfunction, or post-COVID with a brain involvement. And the brain involvement involves many aspects that include the cognitive dysfunctions, but most of the patients after COVID and around between 30 to 70% develop symptoms after 4 weeks. And the longer the people they continue, the numbers start dropping, but around 6 months, around 30 to 40% persisted with the symptoms. And the most frequent symptom that we see in this population is fatigue, is the most predominant symptoms. Around 50% of the patients at 6 months continue having some fatigue. The other symptom that people describe the loss of sense of smells of taste and the cognitive dysfunction. They are the 3 major symptoms that we see more frequent in those patients. But like I said before, some people present with cardiac issues like a cardiac arrhythmia, sometimes pericarditis or myocarditis. Also people with a lung involvement with dyspnea, sometimes associated with paralysis of the diaphragm through the phrenic nerves. Or we can see people who develop pulmonary fibrosis in some extreme cases, this pulmonary fibrosis can lead into a need of lung transplant in this population.
I see. And given the information that Dr. Bonilla has just shared with us, Professor Shin, what are your thoughts on the importance of formalizing the diagnosis and treatment of long COVID?
Yeah, so this is very concerning and serious problem that, this is why we should do everything to really protect against the COVID-19 infection and, try to get the COVID-19 vaccine as soon as possible. The one recent study shows that 30% of COVID-19 patients still have persistent symptoms even after 9 months. So this is very surprising in a way that the majority of these people had only mild symptoms, not the severe cases. So this really tells us that there has to be a need. There's definitely a medical need for us to educate about the potential long-term risk of having this COVID-19 infection, and we need to raise the public awareness to really have our citizens understand, how important it is to get the vaccines against COVID-19.
Of course.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, over in the US, Dr. Bonilla, what can you tell us about the number of patients who suffer from long COVID in the US?
I think we have a clinic here in Stanford to follow this kind of population. Interesting, majority of the people that we see have between mild to moderate COVID, never been in the hospital. So have a severe COVID or have a mild COVID is not a guarantee that you don't develop post-COVID syndrome. And in our population, we see predominant females having this kind of symptoms or syndrome. And we see many patients that mimic something have been called the chronic fatigue syndrome, that people present with a cognitive dysfunctions. The severe extreme fatigue is very incapacitated for some patients, and they're not able to start or return to work. The more these people they do, the worse they feel. They have the unrefreshing sleep. People can sleep for hours and they get up in the morning very tired. And we see association with the autonomic dysfunction in those patients, like orthostatic intolerance, tachycardia, and sometimes it changes in the regulation of the temperature that can complain as a part of the syndrome.
I see. Professor Shin, Dr. Bonilla has spoken about several symptoms of long COVID, including fatigue, to others that are more severe, like myocarditis. What are some of the symptoms that have been observed here in Korea?
Yeah, so as Dr. Bonilla has mentioned, we have seen all these symptoms in Korea as well. But mostly, we have seen younger people complaining about the loss of taste and smell, and fatigue, headaches, and some chest pain and gastrointestinal problems, and also difficulty concentrating. And I'm personally very, surprised and concerned about this, what's called the brain fog syndrome. So because this means that, COVID-19 infection can really lead to neurological problems, and we don't know exactly how COVID-19 infections can affect the neurological problems, and I think we need more thorough studies and investigations to study, how, COVID-19 can cross the blood-brain barrier and cause the neurological problems.
Right, so this is another area where we have more questions and answers.
Right.
Dr. Bonilla, do a patient's COVID-19 infection symptoms offer any indication of his or her chances of developing long COVID?
I think at this moment, we don't have a clear definition which population is going to develop post-COVID syndrome. This area that we start investigated. Since the pandemic, we are having a cohort of close to 150 patients that will follow up from the beginning of the infections. And so far, for close to 10 months to a year. So, but we are not have a clear pattern of what is the factor that made them to convert for a COVID to a long-term COVID. Possible has to do with the immune system. It's not clear the pathogenesis of this kind of syndrome, but several hypotheses have been conceal like maybe a persistent of virus antigens in the blood, maybe mimicry or antibodies against the central nervous system of different target organs, or maybe all the combination of both of them. But definitely is a persistent inflammatory response in this kind of patients, mainly affected the brain in the people who present with fatigue and cognitive dysfunctions, and sometimes autonomic dysfunction.
Meanwhile, Professor Shin, how do you respond to belief that women are more prone to long COVID than their male counterparts?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, that multiple reports have suggested that women are have higher risk of suffering from post-COVID, long COVID, and this pattern actually has been seen with other, infectious disease. For example, you see patients with chronic Lyme disease, which is caused by Borrelia burgdorferi, and you see significantly more female patients than men with this Lyme disease. And obviously, we don't know the exact mechanisms why women are, more likely to have severe symptoms and suffer from long COVID than men do. But one thing that we might consider is that there's a genetic difference between men and women. And women have 2 copies of X chromosomes, and a lot of genes that encode for various parts of the immune system are located on these X chromosomes. And this might have something to do with women having more robust immune response or unnecessary immune response that might cause, tissue damage and inflammation in the body. So, but this is just assumption, and I'm sure that multiple factors could contribute to, determining the range of COVID-19 symptoms, and we definitely need to invest more money and funding to study these kinds of areas of research.
Right. Dr. Bonnier, in a recent interview with a U.S. media outlet, you claimed that COVID-19 vaccines might help in treating long COVID, but that more research, of course, is necessary. Could you please elaborate on this?
I think one is because you prevent some infections. If you prevent infections, you prevent the complications of this disease. And the other thing is there are some patient report after the vaccine, they start feeling better. Here in Stanford, I run the chronic fatigue clinic that have almost very similarities with what we see in post-COVID syndromes. In some patients refer after the vaccine, they feel better, but the benefits only is a temporal 1 or 2 days. I have from my cohort of patients that we see in Stanford in chronic fatigue who received the vaccine, feeling better for a month. But it's a very unusual phenomenon. But I think this is evidence that some people, they feel better after the vaccine. The mechanism was not clear. Possible is due to immunological modulation, possible due to the vaccine, that made those people respond better. As we know, in patients with chronic fatigue syndrome, they have a lot of inflammatory response where they have a normal cytokine response in those patients. And there are some evidence that the brain is compromised in this illness, then we assume the same phenomena is happening in patients post-COVID.
I see. Dr. Bonnier, I understand this might be a difficult question, but was there a difference with regard to the results of whether you used a viral vector vaccine or an mRNA vaccine or perhaps a protein subunit vaccine?
I think there's no studies try to to conclude which one is more beneficial or which one is more at risk to develop post-COVID complications. But the studies done in myocarditis have been associated with mRNA vaccines, and most of the myocarditis affect young younger populations. In contrast, the patients who have been associated with the AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the virus vector vaccine, have been associated with more thrombotic events, more in the female population. But still the numbers are very low, so the risk to develop those complications are very low.
I see. Meanwhile, Professor Shin, what efforts do you propose for here in Korea to better deal with people who may be suffering from long COVID?
Well, so first of all, our health insurance system actually can cover the treatment, the post-COVID treatment. So you don't have to worry about the treatment. But we definitely need more well-organized research and a lot of funding to support the education of potential high risk of having this long COVID. So, and we need to really find out why these symptoms persist in people and, how these problems could affect, people in long term.
Of course. All right, Professor Shin, as always, thank you very much for your thoughts. And
Thank
Dr.
you.
Bonea over in the US, thank you very much for your insights and your time.
Oh, thank you to you. Have a good
Right.
night.
Now, as we have been saying time and time again, prevention is indeed better than cure if possible. So do make an active effort to keep the virus at bay by abiding by all prevention guidelines. Thank you for watching.